Nash was one of the most brilliant minds.
Welcome to Princeton. Who amongst Einstein?
Fun. It's the only way I will ever distinguish myself.
He saw
Genius, madness, love, obsession. A Beautiful Mind isn't just a story about mathematics. It's a story about reality itself, and what happens when the mind turns against its owner. In this video, we're diving into the Oscar-winning psychological drama, Beautiful Mind, a hauntingly beautiful portrayal of John Nash, the brilliant but tormented mathematician whose greatest battle wasn't with the Cold War, but with his own mind. Based on a true story, A Beautiful Mind follows John Nash from his early days at Princeton, where his unmatched intellect sets him on a path toward mathematical greatness, but as his career ascends, so does his delusion. Soon, Nash believes he's working on top-secret government cryptography, but here's the twist: much of what he sees and who he sees isn't real. What begins as a suspenseful spy thriller slowly unravels into a heartbreaking portrait of schizophrenia. The genius codebreaker turns out to be decoding something far more complex: the difference between reality and illusion. And at the center of it all, love. As his wife Alicia becomes his anchor, Nash learns to live with, not conquer, his hallucinations. He chooses logic. He chooses love. He chooses to endure. A Beautiful Mind isn't just about brilliance, it's about the cost of brilliance. It's about seeing the world differently, and fighting every day to find truth within chaos. Stick around as we break down the hidden symbolism, the real story of John Nash vs. Hollywood's version, and what A Beautiful Mind tells us about mental health, genius, and the power of human resilience. This is A Beautiful Mind. Let's break down. This man was named John Nash, a graduate student of Nobel laureate Abel in mathematics. At that time, he was studying mathematics at Princeton University. During his break, he accidentally met his tough rival, Martin Hansen. After a little argument, he immediately went to his dorm room. There he met his roommate named Charles Herman, a literature student. It didn't take long for them to finally become friends. The next day, John Nash was humiliated by Hansen, who said that John Nash would never be able to intern at Wheeler Lab. It is a research and development center funded by the United States Department of Defense. This is because, until now, John Nash has not been able to produce a paper to determine his job placement. Hearing this, he couldn't stop thinking about the original idea for his paper. After 2 days in a row in the library, his friend Charles Herman invited John Nash to take a break at a bar. The next day, John Nash met with the professor to ask for an extension to complete his paper. However, when the professor heard John Nash to the students, John Nash gave the task of solving a case from the multivariable calculus he created. And when he was about to go home, suddenly, a Defense Department agent who had been secretly watching him yesterday came over to John Nash. The agent, named William Parcher, asked John Nash to find and break the encryption code hidden in every corner of the newly published issue. In order to help his country, John Nash happily accepted the offer. The next day, while he was busy looking for codes in magazines, suddenly one of the students named Alicia came to talk about her calculus assignment that John Nash had given her the other day. Unexpectedly, after that meeting, the two of them planted the seeds of love until finally, they got married. After getting married, John Nash still did his job of looking for hidden codes in magazines, and then sending the solution files through the nearest mailbox. The next day, while he was looking for the encryption code in the park, he accidentally met his old friend, Charles Herman, who was walking with his nephew. There, John Nash tells about his secret mission, as well as his love story with his wife. So far, their marriage relationship looks very harmonious, and they often make time to eat together. Until one day, when he sent a sudden encryption code crack.
Get in. Hurry. Get out.
After knowing that someone had been following him, John Nash began to become afraid and began to behave strangely while teaching his students. As the days went by, John Nash's fear grew, but on the one hand, he could not tell his wife about his secret mission. So, let or not, the wife was forced to
Get off me! Stay away from me! Everything's all right here.
After waking up from his fainting spell, he became increasingly convinced that the psychiatrist was a Soviet kidnapper who wanted the encryption code that he had managed to crack. When he started to feel pressured, John Nash suddenly saw Charles Herman, who was also there, but because Charles Herman just kept quiet, he became angry and thought that Charles Herman had betrayed him.
Talking to, tell me who you see. No one there, John.
Seeing John Nash's behavior, the psychiatrist immediately realized that John Nash had schizophrenia. It turns out that all this time, secret agent Charles Herman and his nephew were just a figment of his own imagination. Hearing the psychiatrist's explanation, Alicia realized that she had never met Charles Herman in person. To confirm her husband's illness, Alicia deliberately went directly to the office and mailbox that John Nash usually used. And it turns out that all the documents he sent are still stored there. But when Alicia tries to convince her husband that his job and friends are just imagination, John Nash becomes angry to the point of death.
What kind of hell is not knowing what's true? Five times a week.
Long story short, John Nash finally managed to fight his illness. Even now they have a baby child. However, when John Nash stopped taking his medication, his imagination suddenly returned.
Good to see you, John.
You're not real!
Of course I am. Their codes have grown increasingly complex.
In his imagination, Parcher managed to convince John Nash that they were not a delusion. Secret missions and encryption codes are a very real thing. Finally, John Nash fell back into his imagination, until one day when his wife was hanging up the laundry behind the house, she accidentally saw the gate that was open.
Was released into my bloodstream.
After that, Alice immediately ran to call the mental hospital, but suddenly,
No, she won't.
while John Nash was busy arguing with Parcher, Alice immediately left the house to save herself. However, when John Nash saw Charles Herman and his nephew coming, he immediately stopped Alice's car. John Nash realized that all this time they were just his delusions because they never aged. Hearing that, Alice immediately called back the psychiatrist who had previously treated her husband. The psychiatrist suggested that John Nash return to therapy at a mental hospital, but John Nash didn't want to because he wanted to cure his illness using his own method. All John Nash needed was time. Unfortunately, his wife was still willing to accompany John Nash, even though his condition was getting worse. Several years later, John Nash decided to return to his old college to meet his old enemy, who was now a professor at Princeton University. Luckily, after hearing John Nash's story, Hansen was willing to help John Nash fight his delusions. Days changed, months passed quickly. Now, John Nash had gotten used to not responding to the people in his imagination. Even when someone new likes him, he always makes sure whether the new person is real or imaginary. Long story short, John Nash's condition had improved, and thanks to his persistence and genius, he was even allowed to teach students at Princeton. Finally, he got his professor title back. After his ups and downs in fighting his illness, now all his colleagues and even other professors have recognized John Nash's reputation. Not only that, John Nash's happiness has now increased when he received the Nobel Prize.
Only in the mysterious equations of love.
You are all my reasons.
Thank you.
A beautiful mind leaves us with the truth far deeper than equations or hallucinations. Genius alone doesn't make a beautiful mind. It's the courage to confront your own darkness and still choose to live, love, and create. It's not about genius saving the world. It's about choosing strength every single day in silence, in struggle, and in love. The moral? You are not defined by your mind's chaos, but by your will to rise above it. A beautiful mind reminds us that our greatest achievements are not always on paper, but in the invisible wars we fight and the people we fight them for. If you're going through something hard, mentally, emotionally, or just life in general, remember John Nash's journey. Progress isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's simply waking up and choosing to move forward. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message today. Until next time, keep your mind sharp and your heart open.